Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video I wanted to talk about Saturn square or opposite to Pluto in Synastry. These aspects have been requested a lot, and I can see why, because there's not a lot of information out there on outer planet synastry. And, I think the reason for that being, many astrologers think that there's no significance in these, outer, more generational planets making aspects to each other in synastry. But when there is even just a slight age gap where we have, Saturns and Plutos in slightly different signs or degrees, this does take on a major significance, especially if we don't have this in our own natal chart. So we're relating with someone with a slight age gap. These can be very significant and very karmic aspects. So, yeah, I wanted to talk about these today, and I'll differentiate the two as well. But I do think that this aspect really shows up in relationships that sometimes, for no reason at all, can feel like an enemy. So, this is a carryover from a past life relationship where there's been some sort of karmic implications. We've done something to this person in a past lifetime, and we have come to meet again. So, this aspect, even without anything happening in this physical life, you can kind of start out having like sort of weird vibes or distrust of this person. It can really show up. And also, Saturn squaring or opposing Pluto, it can really bring up a lot of fear and uneasiness around someone. The Saturn person specifically can really get the feeling that like the Pluto person is like behaving in an underhanded or sort of secretive, even criminal way. In some cases, we could see the Pluto person, being really just like out of hand. And even if they're not, the Saturn person has this certain level of like distrust or judgment of them. The Saturn person in this case can kind of feel like a more parental sort of role over the Pluto person. And the Pluto person feels like the Saturn person is, very rigid or they can also similarly feel like the way that the Saturn person is acting is, very wrong, very against their upbringing. They can both feel like that the way that this person behaves is just very against, the way that each other has been brought up and the way that, we've constructed a view of reality and the way that reality is. And then, we meet a person who just behaves totally like the opposite of how we think someone should act and behave. And it causes like this inner cataclysm where it's like, you just can't even process it. Like when you're the Saturn person, you just have a really hard time understanding or even processing the Pluto person's actions in certain ways. It's just like, what are they doing? They're so animalistic. They're so like it's really interesting actually how judgy the Saturn person can be of the Pluto person. And yeah, like I said, this can show up in the synastry of enemies. This is definitely gives that vibe of kind of like distrust and hating each other for no reason, and like being super triggered or fearful of someone for no good reason at all. And the reason really is because this is a carryover. This is a karmic imprint from a past lifetime. Now, I don't know exactly what's happened in the past lifetime. This is something you could meditate on and kind of like do a past life regression on or something. But something has happened here. And we'll talk about how it manifests positively as well, because the hard aspects offer such an opportunity for growth. And you're really going to see like with these aspects the potential for like a complete breakdown of the structures of your life that leads to a breakthrough. And the Saturn person can really feel like the Pluto person is destroying their life. And that'll be related to like the house and the sign placement of their Saturn, how the Pluto person is like having this powerfully transformative effect on their life. Now, if they're both very evolved and there's other things going on that show more harmony, then we can flow with the transformations. But it's likely, especially with the square, that the Saturn person is going to really feel like the Pluto person is having a destructive kind of like breaking down, all that the Saturn person holds near and dear is like just totally violated and destroyed by Pluto. And Pluto, on some level, Scorpio and Pluto, like on a very dark level, is sort of like murderous or treacherous. And I feel like, with these aspects, whether like it's not likely that evil, but it's like the Saturn person reacts and remembers like this whatever's happened that is very dark and very violating in a way. Sometimes Pluto, it can even be sort of like an energy of rape, or even like it's a violation of consciousness where like Pluto's energy has been inflicted on Saturn, and it's like they didn't consent to this relationship, they didn't consent to them having this effect, and now they have to go through this complete upheaval and transformation of everything they hold near and dear. And it's like very unwarranted in some cases. It's very unwanted, but when you look back at your life, like there's like before this relationship and after this relationship, and if you have been able to flow with the changes and you've done some sort of inner work to deal with the fears associated with your Saturn or with your Pluto, you're going to really see this relationship as being like the catalyst and like a supreme benefit to you, more than the easier aspects, or even the conjunction where we're like united in our Saturn Pluto force. This one is really gonna like make you feel crazy, make you feel like you're going crazy. But if you have like a healing practice, you have something to like work with everything that's coming up because of this, it's really going to end up being like the major Kickstarter to, more transformation, more groundedness in your life, because Saturn is all about the structures of your life and Pluto is all about transforming, what is old and what is needing to die. Basically, Scorpio is all about, the constant cycle of death and rebirth of consciousness, right? So when we have the Plutonic force working over Saturn, it's like we're really getting this opportunity to like transform in a huge way all that really needs to be let go for the rebirth to happen. So I guess that's kind of more what's happening to the Saturn person. Now, the Pluto person also is being really taught a lesson by the Saturn person, because it is likely that like the Saturn person is operating from a place of integrity and truth, that the Pluto person might not be able to see. Like they might not actually see that the Saturn person is, acting in a more parental like sort of role. So it's like the Pluto person really can have a lot to learn from the Saturn person, and they can actually kind of like grow up in a way, from the Saturn person's influence. Now, they might not want to, and it's not like in most cases, I mean, there's not going to be anything crazy or like criminal going on, but if there is, and if the Pluto person is acting in a way that is very manipulative or very treacherous in some way, the Saturn person will not let it slide. Like the Saturn is like the god of time, right? Like they're going to get their karma and it's going to be delivered by the Saturn person. So I guess like my advice to the Pluto person is like to work with yourself and be in the most high integrity that you possibly can, because in this relationship, like, and I mean in all relationships, everything is being recorded, and if you react impulsively with an intention to hurt, or like the scorpion, like the stinger, right? If you do that with this Saturn person, there will be repercussions. And I think that's part of the lesson for the Pluto person, because the Saturn person triggers such a deep compulsion to want to control, want to manipulate, want to they're trying to gain power in this relationship, and anything they do that is not from like a truly pure place, there will be repercussions, there will be karmic implications. So it's really an opportunity for the Pluto person to like transcend the lower aspects of a plutonic relationship, right? Jealousy, there can be intense jealousy, coming from both people actually in this connection can be quite jealous of each other, but it can be the Pluto person that is very jealous, and they really feel triggered by the Saturn person's authority, and so they attempt to cut that down and belittle. And yeah, it can get pretty ugly with these contacts. With the opposition, there's more a potential for this sort of ability to meet in the middle here of the signs in polarity. But it is even more so like a back and forth kind of battle energy, if that makes sense. And then with the square, it's more likely that actually there's so much tension and frustration that we might not want to work this out, if there isn't enough other harmonies going on. It's kind of like Saturn square Pluto and Synastry is like a constant like uh brain battle frustration energy. And it can be it's hard to relax with these type of contacts. They're not fun, they're not light, but there is a reason that we've met with these contacts. This is like Saturn, the planet of karma, and Pluto, the planet of transformation. Like, I guess this is the title of this should be karmic transformation. So you're being given the opportunity to really let go of some of like I would say the kind of murky or dark patterns of humanity, of like the way that humans react in a very 3D level, jealousy, fear, even, yeah, like on the lower levels, like criminal kind of behavior. Or this can also show up in like a financial or legal battle when we have these aspects, because uh it there can kind of be a long standing like battling energy over financial things, or over like ideological differences, or like I said at the beginning, there's this very different way of seeing the world. And um, so there can be this kind of battling over like very basic like root chakra things with the Saturn square or Saturn opposite Pluto synastry. So some really deep dark like ugliness of human consciousness can come up here. And it's really like that's the purpose of it, is to clear out and transmute these kind of darker energies in our aura, in our being. And this is the person that you have assigned at the soul level to do this with. And for that reason, it is still a plutonic relationship, in the sense of like there is this feeling of fatedness. There is this feeling of like if you really tap into the soul level, as hard as it can be at times with these battles, it's like you tune in and it's like, oh, this is all part of the plan. Like this is contracted. And you can really feel that when you like meditate on these connections. So yeah, it's definitely not lighthearted, not easy, but the potential for transformation, the potential for growth, and like I said, transmutation of these more like darker human things. There's a great opportunity for that here, especially with people that are way more evolved. Like if we're evolved at the spiritual level, we're not going to see the worst of this. We're going to see more of the positive of this, which is the transforming aspect of the clearing fears aspect and clearing this like compulsiveness or need to control behavior. And then that's when you can actually see gain, financial gain, gain in confidence, gain in perspective that comes from dealing with these severely karmic relationships and passing the test. So, yeah, I feel like that was a mouthful. That was definitely hard to articulate. So I hope that made even just a little bit of sense or made something land for you at the soul level if you're dealing with either of these aspects in synastry. I'd love to know your experience of them. If you've had them, has it been an enemy like situation or has it been just a more mild manifestation of this? I'd love to know. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the requests, you guys. Keep them coming, and we'll talk soon. Okay, bye.